and welcome to this video where I'll be drawing a demon girl in Procreate. This drawing is in grayscale, meaning that it is only in black and white, but then in the end I add a little bit of red just to make some details pop. The reason why I decided to draw in grayscale is that I wanted to kind of focus more on my values, and I also didn't really feel like making a full-out fancy drawing and picking a color palette, so I just decided to make something simple for today and made this little demon girl. I went into this drawing quite blindly without really looking up references or having really any idea in mind other than a demon girl, and then I decided to just start with the head and just go with the flow with this one. So I started drawing the head and the eyes, and I wanted the head to be slightly tilted downwards because I thought maybe it would be kind of cool to have this sort of innocent, cutesy demon. So I rolled with that idea, drew the face out first, made the eyes absolutely humongous, which I then decide that I need to make a bit smaller just so that she doesn't look too creepy. And here I am fixing the eyes, so there's a little bit more of a distance between them, which I also think looks cuter, and then I gave her these kind of pouty lips. All in all, this drawing took me about 1.5 hours to make, and I made the entire drawing entirely with the round brush in the painting section in Procreate. So that is the brush that I used for both the line art, the sketching, the shading, the smudging, and the erasing. So that's the only brush I have equipped on everything. This is my absolute favorite brush, and I think it looks really smooth and nice. I also have a whole video on the brushes that I use, which I will leave in the description below if you're interested in that. Demon girls need demon teeth, so I added some nice little teeth that are both on the lower jaw and the upper jaw. The upper jaw got some smaller teeth and the lower jaw got humongous teeth. I knew that I wanted big teeth to peek out, and the other ones were just kind of a little bit of an extra detail. Everything so far has been drawn on the same layer. I just find it a lot easier to draw everything on the same layer when drawing in grayscale because I don't have to find the layer that I shaded a specific part of the face. So everything is in one, and then if I have some details that I'm not so sure of, I will add another layer for those details. I do that so that it's easier to remove the things that I'm not all that sure if I like or not. Here I am fixing the horn. I had made another horn on the other side but realized that I could just copy paste it, so I took that away and copy pasted the other horn so that they would be more symmetrical. Here I also realized that she needs some more demony ears, so I took away the old ones, or at least the top of them, and made them more pointy. To make the horns more detailed, I went with some lines along the horns that also makes it a bit more realistic, and after I added those lines, I made the horns even more three-dimensional by making them go more in and out, as you can see here. That really adds a little extra details to the horns and makes them a lot more realistic. By doing this, it is also a lot more fun to shade the horns, because now suddenly I have a lot of small crevices that I can shade. At this point I realized that the girl didn't have any eyebrows, so I had to draw those in. She got really tiny eyebrows, mostly because I am a huge fan of short eyebrows and I think they're really cute. And I think that also adds to that innocent look that she's supposed to have. And then I got to shading a bit more. There's never enough shading, so I shaded around the nose and then under it. To add to that more innocent child look that she has, I also decided to add some hands. That is making a quite innocent pose, and her hands are wrapped in her sweater, so she's barely really showing her fingers, which is supposed to make her a bit more shy looking and therefore maybe more childlike or innocent. After looking at the drawing for a while, I decided that I did not like the teeth on the upper jaw, and I also tried to take the other teeth away and maybe give her other teeth, but I didn't like that, so I put it back. And then I also thought that maybe if I gave her a Japanese uniform, that would also kind of symbolize more of that youth. So I tried that, and I didn't really like it, so I go back to the sweater idea afterwards. When it comes to hair, I wanted to make something that looked quite innocent and childlike, but at the same time was unique and not just a normal hair. So in the beginning I started up with some pretty normal bangs, and I was liking it in the beginning, but I just couldn't see how I could make this hair more interesting without making it kind of crazy. And I already had so many details that it wouldn't really fit to have a crazy hairstyle. So I tried 2 other hairstyles. This one is the second one, and I quite like this one. It was a more rough and more pointy, but that also doesn't really suit her all that much because more pointy shapes are a bit more in control, if that makes sense, and she is not really supposed to be that kind of character. So I decided to go with this kind of more soft curly look that still had some points, but it was a bit more messy and a bit more unusual, with like kind of a little bit of a mullet in the back, because I thought that would be really cute. So I found this cute reference picture on Pinterest and went with something similar. After drawing the hair, I went with this nice gray as a base color or a mid-tone, and the reason for that is that it is really hard to make highlights on top of white. So by making a gray base color, it is a lot easier for me to both add highlights, which are gonna be white, and some darker shadows. Even though the round brush is a really smooth brush, I was still kind of struggling to make it nice and even. That would have been less of a problem with a bigger brush, but because I have so many details and so many points and stuff, I have to go with a smaller brush. But that's fine because you can just smudge it together, and then here I start on the hair. The hair was actually quite fun to make. I usually do not like drawing hair and avoid it or just kind of half-ass it, but here I tried my best and I do think it turned out quite cute. Here I give her some bigger under eyes before I focus more on the nose again. So I add some nice shadows to them, mostly just building up shadows that I had already made, and then I also made the nose a bit more sharp with some darker lines and a little bit of a highlight underneath so that it looks a bit more three-dimensional. Then she gets a little highlight on top of the nose and a little bit around it to make it again more three-dimensional. Then I continue with the highlights around the eyes, a little bit on the chin, and then on the top of the forehead. This also makes her look a lot better in my opinion, and then I feel like it was a little bit too much highlight, so I add some more shadows to give it more depth, a little bit around the hair and around the cheeks. Then I also try to make a little bit of a highlight right next to that, because I've done that in some other drawings before and I thought it looked good, so I tried to do it here as well so that it doesn't look too dark. Then a little bit of highlight on the top of the lip and a little bit of lip shine, and then I also shade the lips a little bit better afterwards. Now it is time for a part that I actually really enjoyed, and that was the horns. First I made the mid-tone a bit darker because I want the horns to be darker than the skin. And then I started first just roughly shading where the shadows are supposed to be on both of the horns before I started adding details or shadows to the tiny crevices like you see here. After I have really roughly shaded the horns, I add tiny bit more shadows just so it's easier to blend, and then I use the smudge tool to smudge it all together and make it look a lot more natural. That step takes some time, but then you can see later after I finally finish that I will add highlights, which brings it all together and makes the horns look pretty good. Here I'm finally adding those highlights, and I am using the eraser instead of the smudge tool or the brush, and the reason for that is that I don't want the highlights to be completely white. I want them to be the same color as the skin tone, so I just erase the new layer where I had shaded the horns with so that you can see the original base tone or the mid-tone shine through. Then it is time for the sweater and the hands. After watching this video now, after I made the drawing, I can see that the sweater is a way too similar of a color as the skin and the horns, and I definitely should have either went a lot darker or a lot lighter. So that is definitely a part that I regret now looking back at this drawing. At this point in the process, I thought the drawing looked quite good, but I wanted to add some color to it. So I tried out a different background color, and then I also tried out a different eye color. So I went with pink eyes and a sort of turquoise color in the background, and I also tried some orange blush. But then in the end, I decided that it was a bit too much and I didn't like the pink, so I went with red, and I went back to the original black and white color scheme for the rest of it. So here I am trying out a set of eyes that are just like all the other eyes that I draw. It's the same method, and yeah, they're solid eyes, they look alright, but I wasn't really liking it that much and I felt like it was a little bit too detailed. So I decided to try one other set of eyes, and that one was going to be a bit more demon-like. So I started the same way that I usually do, with some shadows on top, but I made the irises white and more cat-like. So here I have the two different versions, and I decided on just going back to the originals, adding some highlight to those, and I think they are really cute. Here I am adding the last details, which is a little highlight in the eye creases, and then I sign my name, and that is it for today's drawing. Here is a close-up of her face. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you liked it, and I'll see you again next week. Goodbye!